Welcome to the remnants of the Great Forge and the rebirth of Mandalore. I am Ebube, and you are listening to Popcorn for Dinner. Today, we celebrate the defeat of a formidable foe, one that's been a thorn in our side from the very beginning, and we begin our quest as independent contrasters in an incompetent government that can't refuse our help because we're just that good. Joining me today is Priscilla, torch in hand, so I'm going to let her land this ship. Priscilla, did we win?
We won. It took us a long time, but we won.
I think so too. How do you feel about the episode overall?
I was so scared they were going to kill him off. And I was
Really?
so
You thought they
scared.
had they had the guts?
I genuinely did.
That's
Because I
Game of
just kept
Thrones
thinking to
energy,
myself, like,
HBO energy in general. Actually,
yeah, literally, I'm like, it's
well
Pedro.
done, Disney.
He's well done, honestly, to keep him on. He's blown up in the last year and a half.
Yeah,
I'm like, are they going to be able to keep him in? It's a lot of time to ask him to stay.
he has a lot of
And
things to do, and everybody
he's got a
wants
lot of
Pedro
things to
Pascal.
do. The story wise, it would make sense if he went. And then what I was happy about, he saved himself. I'd
Yeah,
be
he
so
didn't need
mad.
rescuing. Yeah,
He
that was
didn't
good.
need rescuing.
I
I
wasn't
think
sure how that would go, but I'm glad they went that way.
same. Like I was like, please do not let him get rescued. Like what happened in Boba Fett. Let him be the
Ah,
one to rescue himself.
yeah,
Let him be the one to do it. Not that I didn't love that moment because obviously Grogu's journey came to fruition, but I loved, and what I loved about the episode that it went back to the Mando that I know and love, which is Din and Grogu's relationship and them two
yeah,
working together to defeat. I'm like, this is why I watch this show. Like, this is why I just want to watch a father and son do absolute space Clint Eastwood nonsense, and then go
yeah.
back and sit on a ranch as a sun sets on a grateful universe, as Thanos said. Like that's all I
Mm-hmm.
want. And it took us 8 episodes to get us there.
Yeah.
That felt like an old school like Mando episodes
Mm-hmm.
in comparison to all the not that I didn't enjoy the episode, I really loved the other episodes, but this I'm like, I'm back on familiar ground. I know what's gonna happen here. I feel comfortable. This is home to me now
Yeah.
in comparison to what was going on before, I guess.
That makes sense. Yeah, the episode I think went really, really well. I wasn't as distraught as last time. Thank you for everyone who reached out. I'm doing okay. Um, in the end, I will say that I expected a lot of action, and that's what we got. I think we got a good amount of story development too. We pick up right where we left off. But speaking of which, I should let everyone know that even though this is going to be our last episode covering The Mandalorian for a while, if you do like the sound of my voice, you can hear me talking about Succession. And Priscilla has also been talking about Rain Dogs. This is just two of the many things that we're covering at the moment. The guys are also talking about Ted Lasso. And as of this week, we are now covering the final season of Barry, which promises to be quite amazing. We have a lot of other stuff coming down the pipeline too, so definitely stay tuned. We have quite a lot to give you. But in the way of this episode, I think it's worth pointing out that it was directed by our good friend Rick Famuyiwa yet again. He did a fantastic job. I thought the direction of everything was good, but even going down granularly, the art direction was good. The blocking was amazing. Visual effects on point. I mean, over. I think Star Wars has always been really like dialed in to practical effects, visual effects, special effects, things like that. They've won a lot of awards for this. And back when the series started in the 70s, I mean, George Lucas and his team were quite renowned for coming up with new processes for things that people didn't even know how to do yet. They had to literally invent the technology to make certain things that people saw on screen. And I think they're still kind of leading um, that charge with The Mandalorian. because now we're at a point where they make things look practical on purpose, so it still feels like OG Star Wars. But some of those things that we see as practical aren't always completely practical. You know, Star Wars has a good way of making certain things feel very tangible, and I think that really contributes to the way the series feels, even if it's right down to those little wipes and fade transitions that they do between scenes. I think that that worked out very well. I think that Ludwig Göransson did an amazing job here again. There were a lot of nice leitmotifs and musical calls throughout this episode, and some have been built from ideas that were introduced earlier in the season. So it's nice to see that kind of, you know, auditory storytelling going on. It really reminds me of the work that Nicholas Britell does on Succession, and
Succession.
even what the OG Ramin Javadi does on Game of Thrones and
Oh,
House of the
Game of
Dragon.
Thrones.
Yeah, those guys are essentially the kings of the leitmotif, and we love to see it. But yeah, like I said, we pick up right where we left off. My first thought was that these TIE fighters are like flies. I don't know where they build these tiny planes from, but they're so destructive. Still, Grogu following Din and his captors without being seen, very, very impressive. I didn't know he had it in him. I don't know if
I
that's
was so
something that he
proud.
developed from the Force. That was very good. So yeah, I'm guessing you've had a lot of feels for that, seeing Grogu essentially start to enact violence on another living thing, because we have to acknowledge that that is something that happened. How you feeling?
I'm so proud of you. I was literally looking at her. It's like I never thought we would get here. Like when he
But
when he
we
when he
made
did
it.
that, I thought I was like, that's right. That's right, son. You
Uh-huh.
kill that thing. You go. You go Expelliarmus. Yeah, you do that.
Expellion.
Like
Oh my god.
because
That's
I
crazy.
sat there. I sat there. And I'm like, I've never been so happy for someone to kill someone.
Yeah.
Because when he
And
did it, I'm like, oh,
yeah,
and
that's
a
something I
tear fell from my
noticed
eye.
at the end of the episode. I looked at the rating on top because I paused for one reason or another, to make it, like, I guess, a note of something in my head. And I noticed that it said TV-14 extreme violence. And in all honesty, I feel like this was actually quite a violent episode. Nothing we're not already desensitized to thanks to everything else, literally everything else we watch. But I'd say for a
No,
Star
for
Wars
Star
show on
Wars,
Disney Plus, there was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of like hand to hand combat. Lots of people getting shot in the face, a few stabbings as well, people
yeah,
falling down cliffs. Like, yeah, there was a lot going on. This episode
it was
was a
very,
fight from start to finish.
yeah, it was very Revenge of the Sith. You know, the second half of Revenge of the Sith, it was very
Yeah.
much that, like constant battles between. It felt in a good way that you were in a
Yeah.
never. Actually, it's quite similar to Revenge of the Sith in the sense that you were constantly in between battles. So you remember
Hmm.
Revenge of the Sith, you were with Yoda versus the old squinkly man. Then you got Obi-Wan, and you've got what's his face, Anakin, and
Yeah.
then you got and then you got Obi-Wan against Grievous, and I mean you were jumping in between fights. Whereas with this, it felt exactly the same. I think Rick, and with the work of John's writing, etc., was able to sort of, like, it's very easy when you're in between fights like that to sort of lose pacing and to sort
Uh-huh.
of lose track of where you're at. Whereas I knew when we kept jumping to scene, I didn't feel like I was like, oh, like, why am I here? Like, I kind of
Yeah, it
always
wasn't
felt like,
jarring
okay,
as
this,
well. Very good job on
yeah,
the
it wasn't
directing.
jarring. Like when it went from Bo-Katan to like Grogu to obviously back to Moff Gideon and everyone, like it didn't feel like you were like out of it too much. Like I knew where I was. In comparison to, I'd say, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, where the last episode they nailed it. To be honest, the penultimate episode and the last episode they nailed it, but the episodes before it, it felt a bit jarring.
Right.
Going from like seeing Hayden being look like a burnt Dorito in the tank to he's a good looking man,
But
but
they
not as
burned him.
him. They
Yeah.
burnt him like one chip, and then you're going to Obi-Wan and you're going to Reva, and you felt a bit jarred, except for the
Yeah.
last two episodes. Whereas this was a bit seamless. Like, okay, I know why I'm going from here to here to here to here. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of which, speaking of the Revenge of the Sith and Anakin, Gideon was looking a lot like Vader and sounding like him too when he put his helmet on. Um, I think that when he said he'd take care of Din and Grogu himself, like he just said that in one line, like I'll take care of them myself, and then he puts on the helmet and walks away. That's a very Darth Vader move. I think that was probably a visual callback, especially down to the fact that another visual callback in there is the horns on the helmet, which kind of makes
Yeah.
you wonder if he's a Maul loyalist, which is something that the armorer has
That's
been
what I
confused.
was thinking.
Yeah, the armorer has been accused of being as well, but we'll get to her in a second. I do think that it's interesting that he has trackers on, you know, Din and Grogu specifically. Like he's looking at his map and he can see them moving. It's like, why do you have, why do you have trackers on them? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, what is actually your beef? That's so weird.
I'm
Like all these
like,
people
what
in
did
this
he do
building.
to you?
Like, and when did
He's
he
not
put the
even wielding
trackers
the
there? Like,
dark.
how?
Exactly. And he's not even wielding the Darksaber anymore. Like, what did he do? Like, what did they do to make y'all niggas that mad?
I
Like,
don't know. I don't know why they hate the Mandalorians so much, but they definitely put up quite a bit of a fight. As soon as Axe Wolves, once he entered the control room, I was like, oh well, I guess it's your turn to be a hero. Thankfully, he ends up surviving this. It is
I
wild to
swear,
me.
if
Yeah, yeah, like
yeah, I yo,
like bro, we didn't even like you when we first met you, but don't die. Have some self-preservation. I think it's interesting as well that their jetpacks can give them that much mobility and space. All they weren't like,
did you
think
see the
about
way
that.
they moved?
Yeah, think about the fact that they're wearing jetpacks and just like a helmet, like a slightly pressurized helmet, right? And they can fly directly into the atmosphere with that. That's interesting to me. Like, how are they not exploding? I don't know if that's a suspicion of disbelief thing or something we're just supposed to accept that, the characters in Star Wars are used to, because I mean, obviously they're not from Earth. Even though they are humans, maybe they don't, their anatomy is slightly different from ours. But at the same time, maybe they have the technology that would allow them to actually do that and not die. And it's interesting seeing technology like that and then contrasting it with like the hopeless mouse droids that were trying to stop R5. Um, that's just like very Star Wars, seeing like really advanced things, like advanced ideas kind of executed right next to things that feel very rudimentary. Yeah.
No, because you are right. Because I mean, I just lost my train of thought. No, because even with the jetpacks, I'm like, I kept thinking to myself, you know what? I was thinking of Dune, and I was like, you know what?
Always thinking of
The
Dune, aren't you?
Fremen, this show, Star Wars is based on this, so it's not my fault.
Yeah, it's not your fault. I know.
It's not my fault.
It's
I
okay.
kept thinking
Continue.
The Fremen could have used that.
Probably,
I
yeah.
kept thinking the Fremen could have used that. But when I was watching, yeah, you're right. Because when I don't know if we've ever seen them use it in this way, or if it's just because I was noticing it for the first time. But the
Hmm.
way they were using the jetpacks in this episode, I'm like, I hadn't thought that you could really zoom into the atmosphere like that in
Yeah,
that
it's
manner, in that
yeah,
way.
it
I,
was it
I
was
don't know if they've
really
done it
interesting.
before. So I don't know if they've done it before, and I've just never really paid that much attention to it. Because you remember
I
they
don't
all
even
went
know
as
if
a
we've seen
group.
this much jetpack activity in any episode to begin with.
That's what I was
But yeah,
thinking. Because you remember they all went together like as a group, and they just
yeah,
zoomed in, and I'm like, oh, that's so interesting how you guys can just do that, considering how heavy their armory is. Because you'd think that suit weighs a ton, and you guys are able to go into the air
yeah,
like you're wearing a feather. But no, you're right. I found that quite interesting because I've never seen them maneuver like that. But that could be a good fighting tactic, and it worked for them in the end actually because the people they were fighting against had no idea when they were coming or going because they were all able as a group to tactically do it.
exactly. Yeah, that made sense. Though moving into like another part of the episode that closed in on, I guess, the climax of it, the big fight towards the end. Those clones. I was
Hey
initially
yo,
thinking those were like them cooking up, the early versions of Snoke or something, but those were clones of Gideon.
Gideon.
That was
I saw
interesting. What did you
I
think of
saw
that?
his face. I was not expected to see him. What is Giancarlo? Is he black?
He is, yes.
Yeah, I was expecting to see a nigger in there. I was expecting to see Andy
Why you asked
Serkis.
me if he was black just so you could do that? What is wrong with you? Oh my god!
I didn't want to. I ain't trying to claim no non-white person as a nigger,
Wow! Wow! Wow!
but
Wow!
I
Wow!
saw him
Wow!
in there, and I was like, I was expecting to see Andy Serkis or or who plays Palpatine again? His name's in my head. The
The man
actor
who
who plays
plays Palpatine.
Palpatine. Yeah. Oh, is it John something? Oh my days, it's gonna really irritate me. I was expecting to see his face in there. Mainly Andy Serkis. I'm like, where's Andy Serkis? Why am I seeing
I
your
think you.
face in
I
here?
think you may have watched Andor too many times.
I have way too many toes. Actually, that's actually a good point. But I just kept expected to see someone else. Then when I saw Gideon, I thought, oh,
Yeah,
clones of you.
the guy who plays Palpatine. He's very old now, but he's Scottish. His name is Ian McDiarmid.
That's it, Ian
Um,
McDermott.
yeah, and
Yeah, because
Giancarlo
I was
is, I don't know. He's not like, he's American and he's black, yes, but his family does come from a South American country.
oh, I feel Latino makes sense. But
Yeah,
literally, like I've honestly, I was not expecting to see his face, and you was like, "You were in my plans. I was gonna have so many clones." Da, 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 da. And I was like, "Wait,
yeah.
so this was all?" He
His father
sounded
is Italian.
Giancarlo now makes sense. So because I think he sounded more like Palpatine. He sounded like Vader the first bit. Then he sounded very much like Palpatine in in the last bit. I'm like, you're kind of scaring me, man. Like, you were scary before, but you're scaring me now because you've made clones of yourself. Like, can you imagine being so nuts? Elon Musk would, Elon Musk is probably watching this episode thinking, damn, like, this is something I got in my lab.
Oh my god.
I don't care. You can't shoot me. But
Mm.
you can't.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, but he scared me more in this episode than he's ever had done before. Do you know how narcissistic you've got to be to make clones of yourself to fight?
Yeah, but it's also what he was planning, the fact
And
that
what he
he
was
was
planning
trying
to
to
do with his
put the
clones of
force in
himself.
them.
Like, do you know how
Yeah.
scary that is? I was saying, I was like, I was literally sitting there like, Dean, I don't know how we're gonna get out of this, babe. And then when he started slashing the thing, I thought, oh yeah, that's how we do it. Started looking at these clothes, I'm thinking, I'm gonna get out of this one. I think this is. At that point, I thought he was gonna die. I thought, I think our road's closed. I can't
Hmm.
see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then when he started slashing them, and I thought, oh yeah, that's true. I didn't think when he started slashing the tanks and stuff, and they all like obviously were dying. But yeah, his plans really, really terrified me. It scared the like. Can you imagine if that actually came into fruition? What he wanted to do, but they showed it a very good job because the seeds were there
Hmm.
for ages, and none of us caught on to what he wanted to do. Then you when he revealed it, I thought, now everything makes sense. Now I know why he hid because obviously you're trying to plan this, make this plan, and
Yeah,
then
I
you're
mean,
only going to
he
come
clearly had a
into.
lot of time,
He had
right?
a lot of time. He had plenty of time, and obviously he planned everything, and he only came into the light once his plan was almost in complete fruition. So yeah,
Yeah,
it was
because
he terrified me.
the end of season two was supposed to believe it was about 2 years ago, right? So he's
Yeah,
had at least 2 years to work on all this, and then he definitely was working on it before then. Um, I think that made a lot of sense, and we'll see where things um go now, especially with bigger bads coming down the line, which we'll talk about in a second. I wonder, actually, wouldn't it be funny if someone like Darth Maul is still kicking around? That's like the hardest guy to kill in Star Wars. He's just
he
always
annoys
popping
me
back
with
up.
his lightsabers like this, man. He used to die.
Yeah, but the cinematography was on point. Switching gears, um, I really like the way the show uses these punctuating zooms to highlight things approaching from the distance. I think is very cool. It makes things feel very realistic because, I mean, that is kind of what your eyes do on a very, very small level when you're when you're trying to focus on things that are coming at you from far away. So I like that they do that. It makes you feel like you're actually in the scene. It is very immersive, just as immersive as the aerial battle that we saw. That was definitely something for the history books, like the Mandalorians and the Imperials wearing Beskar flying towards each other on jetpacks and fighting in the air. Like that. That is wild. That's the kind of thing you can only see in a show like this. So I'm definitely glad that we got the chance to do that. I'm glad that they didn't waste that chance. Same way, I know that there are certain things coming in, say, House of the Dragon, that will happen in the air. We've already gotten a taste of one aerial battle in the show involving dragons at the end of season one. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they do things there, and I hope it will be as good as what we saw in this episode of The Mandalorian. I mean, the episode is titled "The Return," and that really gives credence to the fact that the Mandalorians are fighting for something they feel is bigger than themselves, and that is their identity as a people, as a society, as a planet. As Bo-Katan says, let's take our planet back. That's good, you know. But actually, you know what? Before I even forget, Gideon, when he walked up to them, he immediately started lamenting and outlining his clone plans, monologuing and, getting shot in the process. Hasn't he watched The Incredibles? You don't just like you don't show up
Don't
and start
tell your
monologuing.
evil plan. Why
Why are
do
you
villains
revealing the
like
plan? He didn't even waste time doing so as well. That's just weird. What is that
it's like
about?
did you watch John Wick 4?
I haven't yet.
Oh, I can't even say the line. Damn it.
Is it a spoiler?
Yeah, it's what
Okay. Okay. Never
but in
mind.
John Wick
My bad.
4, in John Wick
My
4,
bad.
that happens, right? And I was
Okay.
literally looking at him like, are you insane? I was literally watching him. You will know exactly what I mean when you see it. Right, everyone who's watched John Wick before will know exactly what I'm talking about right at the end. And he was monologuing, he
Hmm.
was talking rubbish and stuff. I was literally looking at him, I'm like, are you alright? You never explain your evil plan to the protagonist. It doesn't make any sense. You know,
It
Invader did
always,
it in in
yeah.
um in Empire Strikes Back. I'm like, you're telling your son that you want to build an empire with him. Like you're telling him your evil plan that he can then tell the resistance. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah,
Like
it's
these
weird that
these
they would
people
do
don't
that.
learn. They
They
don't
never
learn
learn.
because like I don't understand. Like why don't these people learn from Thanos?
It's not
Just
even
be
just Thanos.
about action.
My favorite example actually of like subverting this trope is Ozymandias, Adrian Veidt
In break,
from
yes, breaking.
Watchmen, right? And
Yeah,
he like and in the original Watchmen like comic book and movie, like that original story before, the one that predates, like, just for anyone who doesn't know or might be a little bit confused, the Watchmen TV show on HBO, amazing by the way. Please watch that when you get a chance. That is actually a kind of sequel to the original series. It's like the same show, same world, but they continue from where the comic books left off about 30 years later. And it's interesting to
yep,
see where everybody is. Um, in the original story that happens in the comics and in the 2009 movie, um, Adrian Veidt's Ozymandias is kind of asked by the protagonists, by the quote unquote good guys, and he himself is not necessarily a bad guy, which is another good thing about Watchmen. But basically, there are some people trying to stop what he's doing, and they ask him what's going on, what's going to happen, and he looks at them. He's like, "Are you insane? Why would I reveal my masterstroke to you? Like, why on earth would I do that?" And like joke, he doesn't tell them what's happening, and then they're powerless to stop him. He he wins, which is like the funniest thing ever. And
this
I
is
don't know
so
why
fake.
people,
Like
why more villains aren't like Adrian Veidt. This is a
it's
call for
like
villains. If you listen to
it's
this,
like
be like
Ramsey
Adrian.
Bolton. Ramsey Bolton was exactly the same. Like he never revealed his true plans to anyone. So when he did win, you weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
That's what makes him. And I still hate him. Oh my days, and he's in Misfits, Ewan Rowan, and I look at him and I still, and he was on that before Game of Thrones, and I still see Ramsey. But it's what
Hmm.
made him such a culpable villain. Even Cersei. in season 6, in the last episode, Burning of the Sept, no one knew she was going to do that. She just got about business and did it. I look at
Yeah,
Gideon, I thought, so you decided to open your big mouth, yeah, forgetting where you are. and
Gustavo
a
Fring
Jedi
would
is,
never.
and a Jedi, Darth Maul will never, he would never do this. Darth Maul was about action. He would have gotten those two sabers and would have been executing people, right? He just was
Yeah,
about it. Grievous would have not let that happen. Snoke would have not let that happen. Like I can keep listing Star Wars villains. I was literally listening to him. I'm like, your
actually,
Jedi is literally a Jedi is literally right there, and you're telling
oh,
him your plan.
yeah,
Does
I
that
don't
make
know.
any sense? It's like if, for example, if Ahsoka's there and I'm telling you my evil plan, what is she gonna do to me? Now I know this plan.
It doesn't make any sense. Still though, I think it was good and actually very cool to see that Gideon himself is a competent fighter. You know, a lot of the quote unquote extreme
Oh,
violence in the episode comes from him just like beating people up. And I don't know if it was the
I
effect
hated
of the
it.
suit, but clearly he's good at hand to hand combat. He's actually able to defend himself and be on the attacking end. We've mostly seen Moff Gideon, you know, run away and escape the entire time we've known him. So it's interesting to actually see this person, you know, take on the people that have been chasing him. He actually makes a stand. And I think the fight was interestingly choreographed. It was pretty good. But actually, speaking of that choreography, I think it's interesting. It's fun actually on a visual level, on a filmmaking level, how they always slightly change the frame rates when the Praetorian Guard walk in. There's always some slight
Oh,
slow motion in there, and it really sort of adds to the action. I think it makes them feel very different, and it contributes to the presence that they have in any scene that they're in. What do you think
yeah.
about them actually being used for this? Would you say that that was overkill? And it also makes you wonder, like, you know, they sent 3 Praetorian guards. They obviously
Master
they
Grogu.
destroyed Paz Vizsla, and now it's like here now there's 3 of them going after a child.
I saw Grogu, yeah. Do I put my hands on my head like this? I
Hmm.
was like, yo, look, like I was like, I kept thinking to myself, how are we gonna get out of this sweet child man? How? And then you only kept laughing. He was laughing and jumping. I was laughing my head off because Grogu would like use the force and he would like run away and he would just giggle. What are you hearing
Yeah,
yourself? I'm looking at these guys. I'm like, you're letting this little kids cause havoc. Because
too
that's when
much.
I realized that he's more OP than I thought he was. Because I'm happy that they showed Din having that conversation with him, saying like, "You understand like what we have to do here. Like
You have to be brave. Yeah,
you've got to be brave.
and it makes sense. You know,
Like
if they don't fight and defeat Gideon here, this never ends. So now that
literally,
Gideon is
that's what he
kind
was
of
telling
gone, the
him.
show
Like
can move on to its new phase. It makes sense.
yeah, because he was literally telling him like you pack that thing too. Like you've got
Yeah.
to go out and you've got to smash these people in. And it was watching him like cackle. He's jumping off. And I've seen the Praetorian Guards like not know what to do. Because
Hmm.
as much as Paz Vizsla and everyone else, like you can fight combat to combat with people, but when you're fighting a Jedi or a foundling, or Jedi or a youngling in general, because as much as he's a Mandalorian, he's also a Jedi youngling. Word to Anakin. Um,
Don't do this.
sorry, I have to say that. I have to say that. Mr. Skywalker, where did we go?
Oh God.
I'm so sorry.
You just couldn't resist.
Um,
Please
but
continue.
like when you're up against a Jedi, like what can you do? That's it's like an unstoppable force meets an unmovable object. You actually there's nothing you can do
Literally the
because it's
force.
unpredictable. It's literally the force. You can't.
Yeah.
There's no way to combat this. Like you can't fight your way out of someone just picking up something and throwing it at you or taking away your weapons. There's no way to
Yeah.
combat it. So yeah, I thought it was overkill. I thought Gideon, you nasty man. Like the child? Do you know when he closed the doors and Manda was trying to get up? I'm like, I almost started
Wild.
tearing up. The way he closed it, he's a sick man. Did you see the way he closed his doors? And then he shot him. So he
Yeah.
stayed on the floor. I thought, oh, damn, it's a cold world, man. He thought his
Very
son was dead.
cold. Very cold. And honestly, the force was with them. I'm glad that Grogu was able to kind of stay the
Save
course,
the day.
stand his ground, and all that. Eventually, it's interesting to me that it basically took three of them to defeat Moff Gideon. Three of them and a literal explosion. Word to Axe Woves. Um, but yeah, it's cool to see them being protected from the force, by the force like that from that explosion. Gideon seems finally gone. He got roasted in his Dark Trooper armor. Um, yeah, with Gideon gone, I guess the show is able to really move on to what's coming next, and it sort of sets the stage for what's to come. Because obviously the show and every show these days seems to love symmetry, so we kind of end where we begin, and that like gives us a chance to figure out where the characters will be developing, not just like for the story but as people. I think, for example, the season starting with Ragnar, um the son of Paz Vizsla, I guess we should call him Ragnar Vizsla, taking the oath and ending with him taking it again on Mandalore is pretty apt. More symmetry as well with Marshall IG-11. That is very funny to me. Just from that head, they were able to review the drone. I think it's funny that the Anzellans can fix just about anything, and this is and this is really adding to the development of Navarro. It's cool that Navarro also continues to play a part, being the kind of the geographic center of the story's narrative. Still though, we have to congratulate our boy Din Grogu. I'm pleased to present that to you. That is very nice. I have
Oh,
to
my heart
say,
melted. Did you see his little
literally,
face?
because I had a feeling when she was like, "Yeah, he can't take the oath because he can't speak." I was
I thought he
I
was gonna
was like,
speak.
"Whoa, is this guy about to talk?" I
I
was
thought he
like,
was gonna
"Whoa,
say.
is
Do
he
you know when he
about to
turned
speak?"
he turned his head like this, and I thought, are we gonna say this is the way? Are we gonna say it?
Bro, I was I wasn't sure what to expect, but I almost heard it. I was already hearing it like from the corner of my ear. But yeah, so they're gonna be New Republic contractors now, which is good. And you know, I think it's crazy. This was a very neat, happy ending. I don't know if we should be skeptical or just enjoy it while it lasts.
Can we enjoy it, please? Because TV Land is giving us depression. Barry, Succession, uh, House of Dragon. Please, I
There's
please
quite a lot going on, yeah.
let my Din and my Grogu live a happy life. Like when they did the little circle thing, like in the old Star Wars, and he's like trying to use the Force on that little creature thing. I'm like, this is nice. Let's end it here. Let's not do any more. Like, you've
Hmm.
given me enough depression, Star Wars. Let this be it. 'Cause I'm
Yeah,
sorry. Like when I heard Din Grogu, yeah, and he did his little face, he was so happy to have a dad, and then Din's obviously accepting his father role and
yeah.
everything. And I'm
Like they
like, this
made it
is such a
official now, which is
they
good.
made it official now, like he's a dad, he's a single father. And I was so happy for him. He's a single dad, he's the dad that steps up. Like,
Yeah.
I was
I
so
mean, yeah,
happy for him.
even for the Mandalorians themselves, lighting the Great Forge again. I think that that's a really cool thing, because now they can actually start to rebuild, and it makes you wonder. Well, first of all, Moff Gideon, did he really just like break the Darksaber? Like, does anyone even know how to fix that? Like, that's a problem, right? Because I don't know if they picked it up when before they got into the little like force. How do you fix something like the Darksaber? It's been around for millennia. Like,
Do
what's
you
going to happen?
reckon
Who's alive that knows what to do with that?
do you reckon that could be Din and Grogu's adventure to fix this?
Perhaps,
Because
perhaps maybe
I
that's going
think
to be a
Din
big
was
part of,
asking
of,
about
of season 4.
Yeah, because Din was asking about Imperials. I think obviously that's going to be a major part of the. I think basically, obviously, we're probably going to get into it now, but I reckon whatever happens in Ahsoka is going to affect what happens in Mando. So
Hmm.
I think they'll probably tie it together.
Yeah, especially
Um,
with the little crossover thing that they seem to be working on.
yeah, with Zeb and they're bringing up a Thrawn and everyone and the clones and all the things we've seen this season. I reckon if when we do see Ezra, oh, I'm gonna cry that day. Oh, I'm gonna
I'm
cry
sure.
that day we see Ezra. I'm gonna cry
Yeah,
like a baby. But when we do, I think what happens in Ahsoka would then tie into what happens with Mando. And I think they did mention a Mando movie, didn't they? I think that's happening some point
It
in the
might.
future. We're getting them. Yeah.
It
So I
might.
reckon, to be honest, if I'm Disney, if I'm John Favreau and Dave Filoni, I don't think I would even do a season 4 of it. I think I would tie all the shows together and do one massive movie, to be
Okay.
honest. Like I don't think Mando needs another season. I think you
At
could do a
all?
film. I don't know, because I'm like, what else?
Because I feel like
I
there's
mean,
still ways
there's
to
still
continue the story
material because
in
I think
without like dragging it out too much.
yeah, so I think they probably got another 2 seasons in them. For me to be completely honest, I think they've got two in them left before it sort of like you need to kind of stop while you get ahead. I sort of want them to do what Ted Lasso did really well, which is that obviously we're only presuming this is the last season, but they've ended it while it's on a high.
Yeah.
So I reckon they've got two more seasons in them. I think we need to see Grogu fully fleshed out, speaking at some point. Like I think we need to see that and to
Well,
see not speaking. I'm not expecting him to be like,
I have thoughts on that
"Oh,
actually. Um,
bottle you are," or "Great you are." I'm not expecting to hear him sound like Yoda.
yeah. I will
Mum with the
say
dark side, you are.
Yoda said he had been training Jedi for 800 years,
Yeah.
which would mean since he was around 900 that he'd been doing it since he was 100. Now, Grogu is 50-ish. Let's say 52. Accounting for the 2 year gap. I think he's very, very close to speech. I think it's going to be one of those things where it's like there'll just be a massive growth spurt of sorts, right? These first 50 years have been like the infancy. And I think from here, like, because he clearly is very, very like cognizant of what's going on around him. He can interact, he understands language fully. He just can't really like speak. I think that's the only thing left. He's just going to be able to like interact. Maybe he's going to be like in his teen years. Maybe they're going to start season 4 with him kind of being able to interact with people in a way that's like, maybe teenage, or he's having a bit of a
Like
phase, or whatever the
teenage
case may be, or
Groot
maybe
in Guardians.
yeah, or maybe it's something that happens towards the end of the season, or maybe even the middle of the season. I think it's something that we're probably on the precipice of. So we'll just have to see how it goes. But that's pretty much everything that happened in the episode. But there's one thing that's still on my mind, which is we still don't know, or at least don't quite know, who the spy is. The spy from the previous episode. Because
I'm gonna
let's think about this, right? There's this whole thing of the Mandalorians all believing that the planet was poisoned, right? That's something that everybody accepted as fact, and it's a good assumption to make based on what happened to the place, right? But wouldn't it be interesting if the spy who like kind of lured them all here also was part of the people like spreading the word about this, so that nobody would go to Mandalore and discover that the Empire was building, or rather the remnants of the Empire were building an outpost there. How interesting would that be? And there's so many suspects now. There's I forget her name all the time. My brother's always trying to
The
remind me. The
armorer is out
the,
of
the
my suspects list. I am so sorry, sweetheart. I was wrong.
the armorer.
I was wrong.
You
I
don't
was
think
wrong
it's
because she
her,
was in my
even
suspect
with
list.
the horns on her helmet, like Darth Maul.
I got it. Maybe I'm gaslighting myself again. Don't listen to me. I gaslight myself all the time. I always think it's
The
someone, then
girl
it's
who
not that
has her hair
someone.
and like a little like cross on her forehead. Um, the black girl.
Oh yes.
I do remember her name. People online seem to think she might be a spy too, but I'm not entirely sure. My brother's always trying to remind me of her name. Sorry, quiz. But yeah, I don't know. It's the whole thing with that, because I really thought that we'd. That's the one thing I expected from this episode, actually, that we would see the spy revealed or talking to Gideon or something, but we didn't get that. So maybe there isn't a spy. Maybe the title "The Spies" refers to something else, or maybe that's just something that they're still laying down for later. I think it's possible that that spy is going to kind of have a role to play in coming seasons. Maybe they even have decided that Moff Gideon isn't actually dead. Maybe that Trooper armor is stronger than we think. Maybe we just think he's dead because we didn't see a burned body. We just saw a body being engulfed in flames. And this is TV in 2023. That doesn't always mean somebody has
If
died.
they, what's the rule? If you don't see them die on screen, they're not dead.
Literally. And we did see him die. I guess we just didn't see him dead. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, everyone, that is a wrap. We just want to give special thanks to everyone who's been listening to our reviews and joining us on this analysis journey up until this point. We're really at the end of what has been, I think, a great season. Star Wars fans are never particularly united on anything. So there are definitely people who aren't thrilled about the way the season has gone and the decisions that Filoni, Favreau, Famuyiwa, and the team have made. However, I think it will stand the test of time, especially since Star Wars fans usually become okay with things that they were violently against after about 10 years. So the stage has been properly set for season 4, and I look forward to getting into it. Priscilla, what do you think we can expect in season 4, especially now that the show has gone out of its way to mention Grand Admiral Thrawn?
I think
You expect him in the
that
Ezra cameo?
oh don't because if I see him I'm gonna
I
start
feel because I
crying.
think that's more likely to happen in Ahsoka, but go on.
Like in Ahsoka, when that happens in Ahsoka, I'm gonna call you crying. I'm,
I
I'm not
expect it.
joking.
I expect it.
Oh,
She's not
Ezra,
lying, people.
that's my dog. Like
Yes, we know.
right out here, man. No, I think
Yeah,
season
that's gonna be a lot.
um I think the Imperial talk was very interesting that Din was having at the end of the episode.
Hmm.
So I think we're gonna see a lot more of the New Republic and I think Din and working with Bo Katan and then the other Mandalorians about what they. I think we'll probably see more of Din and Grogu again, which is what I love. I love my little double
Yes.
act. And I want to see them go against Imperials because I think it's time they went after big dogs. Like they got that
Hmm.
dog in them. They're tough. They can cope. And I
Yeah.
think it will be really interesting to see Grogu's Jedi the use of the Force really empowering now. Because I think in
Uh huh.
this episode, you really like when he saved all of them from the fire. Obviously, we thought it was Bo Katan, then obviously the wider shot zoomed out, and you saw it was Grogu basically
Yeah.
saving them. I think that would be
Yeah.
very interesting to see how Din sort of it's sort of the position that everyone was in when you're with someone, when you're looking after someone who's 10 times more powerful than you are.
Yeah.
What do you then do in that scenario? And how does he control? That's going to be very interesting to navigate because Grogu, once he gets his fully realized powers and once he really fully learns how to use the Force efficiently, is a scary animal, not in a bad way, but his power is insane. So it's gonna be very interesting how the dynamic handles it. Because right now he obviously hero worships Din, as he should.
Hmm.
That's his dad. But it's gonna be really interesting to see how that dynamic changes with how as he grows. I think they'll do a time jump, if you want me to be honest.
Hmm.
I think you want the right lines. I think they'll time jump it. If they're smart, time jump it maybe 5 to 10 years. We
Yeah,
see
because
Grogu a
everybody's in a
little bit
very
more grown
new
up.
place right now. I don't know what drama or like real tension they can build that won't feel too similar to what we just saw in the season. If they continue right from where they left off again. So
Yeah, I think they're gonna have to do it maybe 5 or 10 years post what happens to Ahsoka.
yeah.
If they do that, then we're in the sweet spot, I guess. So I think that's how they
Okay.
should do it. If you want me to be completely honest.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, that makes sense. You all heard it here first, people. Thanks again to all of our listeners and the community, and to our producers as well for being the original listeners and putting all of this in place. So be sure to check out everything else that we're covering. But till next time, see you around.
See you guys.